another interesting in-state battle. At number 2, Miami going on the road in an in-conference in-state game at number 25, Florida State. And Florida State has really fallen down so far. Not only did they lose to Virginia on the road, and that was a classic trap game, they got caught looking ahead to Miami, and they lost that one. Then they come back at home and they host Miami, but it's in the same state. So how much advantage did they have? I don't know. But Miami was just the better team, and Miami continues to do this against teams. Like, they come in, they're the better team, and eventually they find a way to win. And honestly, Miami was winning for a lot of this game. I'm really kind of disappointed in Florida State. We thought they were really great after that Alabama game, and I think they're still solid. I think Miami's just the best team in college football, and they just got caught looking ahead to them against Virginia. So, what do you think about this one, Jack? And how do you feel about Miami and Florida State's fall off?
Yeah, this is definitely interesting. I mean, when you look at the score, you're like, whoa, we actually got a great night game. Uh,
Right,
this really wasn't a great game. It was 28-3 for most of it until Florida State tried to come back in the fourth,
right,
which there just wasn't enough time on the clock. So this definitely wasn't the game, the billing that it was, and definitely didn't live up to last week's night games. And this just shows how dominant Miami is to beat, which I still think is a great Florida State team. But yeah, they've just fallen off with that close loss against Virginia, and now Miami. I'm okay that they're still ranked because those are still two good teams. But when you look at this box
right,
score, like you would not have thought that Florida State lost this game. I mean, they're ahead of them in total yards, passing yards, rushing yards, and like a lot of these, like they barely didn't. I mean, that they completed third downs efficiently, fourth downs efficiently. The only thing you could see is
right,
turnovers, where Miami had 0 and they had 3, and Miami really capitalized on those. Where Castellanos has looked great
right,
this season for the most part, but just like those two takeaways are just so crucial and really gave this game away. And they just could not put points on the board until the fourth quarter. Miami just looks so dominant, and this just adds to their great resume this year.
right. Yeah. And I mean, Florida State, this is not what we thought that they were. And at the start of the year, this is about what we thought would happen. But then that game against Alabama was so huge. And then they started beating teams handedly. We're like, oh, maybe Florida State is back at that top end. But then that Virginia game, I mean, that's just a tough road game. And we see how good Virginia is. They were underrated. They're number 19 in the country now and deserve it. They were a lot better than we gave them credit for going into that game. So you can see how that one kind of happened. And then this one, Miami's just really good. But now you look at Miami's resume, it's really building up because they have wins over Notre Dame, South Florida, which is looking better now that they're ranked, Florida, which is looking better after they upset Texas, and now Florida State. Like, Miami's really, really solid. And we'll have to see how Miami ends up doing. I feel like they got to be at least in that ACC championship game. I would be surprised if they weren't, because the ACC, I mean, it's going to be between Georgia Tech and Virginia fighting for that second spot. I think Miami's really good. I think Miami's the best team in college football right now, Jack.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. And it was interesting last week where they kind of got pushed to number 3 there after Oregon beat Penn State. Glad they're at least number 2 because I do think they're number 1 this week. Just they've just like absolutely dominant against great teams like Florida State, USF, Notre Dame. Like all these wins are so great, and they just like I would absolutely see them just taking over the ACC. This is really their conference to lose, absolutely, and they just absolutely look like the best team in college football. I mean, Carson Beck really settled into this team immediately. If that was the big question coming out of the offseason,
Right.
was is he really gonna like shift to this transfer as good as he was in Georgia, but he absolutely has, and they just look electric. Yeah.
Right. Right. And especially coming off that injury, didn't know how great Carson Beck was going to be this season, but he's played phenomenal. And he's got Miami really in a great spot. And guys like Malachi Tony and CJ Daniels are certainly great wide receiver options. Then Mario Cristobal is really turning into a far better coach than his reputation, as he's known for losing a lot of big games at Oregon and Miami, too. If you remember Georgia Tech a few years ago, They ran the ball when they could have just kneeled it out, and they fumbled. Georgia Tech ends up winning. So they really look a lot better. And Miami looks very complete. The defense is fixed. That was the main reason why Cam Ward didn't have playoff success last year, because he played phenomenal and should have been in the playoffs, but his defense ended up losing him a lot of games. They fixed that. And then they bring in Carson Beck to replace Cam Ward. Like, this team is really great. And I think it's hard to say that they're the best team in the country when you have teams like Ohio State, who are the reigning national champions. So you think, oh, well, maybe you give them the respect at one, but when you're looking at a resume basis, you can't put Ohio State over Miami right now. And as much as good as I think Ohio State is, which I think they are, like, it's just really tough because Miami has beaten so many Power Four teams and a lot of great teams. Because even a team like Florida that they beat, Florida just beat Texas. That looks a lot better now. And a team like South Florida that they beat, where you would think, oh, it's a group of five that's not as impressive. Well, now they creep back into the top 25, so that becomes more and more impressive. And then Notre Dame's ranked really high, where it's like, you really, regardless if you say if they're the best over Ohio State, you can't say anybody has a better resume than Miami right now, Jack.
Yeah, they absolutely do. And it's, yeah, every team, every big team they've played and beaten are ranked. And all of those games have been pretty
Right.
handily that they won by. And they just look like the most dominant team. I still understand if you want to put Ohio State number one, just, national championship, just that bias, I guess. But like, based on this season, if you're doing a top 25, I don't understand how you argue against Miami right now.
Right. They've been very spectacular. And they've certainly been the best team out of Florida, no doubt. And the competition is starting to fall off a little bit because you had Florida State that was up there. They've fallen all the way down. And then you had Florida, a team that was 15th, moved up to 13th, and then lost and lost and lost. But they rebounded this weekend against Texas. So they hosted Texas in the Swamp, which is a very tough place to play. And they beat Texas 29-21. Arch Manning didn't have the best day. He had his moments, of course. I mean, 263 yards and two touchdowns on that Florida defense is pretty solid, but his picks and when they happened were very unfortunate. And Lagway started to play like we thought he would. Like, he had 5 interceptions in a game. It was the main reason they lost a few weeks ago. And now he throws two touchdowns, almost 300 yards, only one pick. Lagway's looking like who we thought, but you worry if it's too late because they already now have 3 losses. So very interesting. And Texas just really isn't who we thought they were at the beginning of the season, Jack.
Yeah, they absolutely are. And this was, I get if you wanted to say this is a trap game coming in this game, because just Florida's defenses look great all year. I mean, they kind of kept Florida in that game against LSU when Lagway was throwing them out of it, and they
Right.
kind of held Miami to a close game until the fourth quarter where they kind of took it away. But this is still a great team. I mean, Lagway's looking better every single week. Like if they had like just that South Florida one really just crushed them uh, early in the year.
Right.
Uh, I still think this is a great team, and Billy Napier is making great calls down the road. But this schedule is just so hard. They really have to win
Right.
out to be in that kind of conversation, and it's just so tough. I don't really see them doing that, especially, which I think is their hardest game, going at Texas A&M this next week.
Right.
But yeah, Lagway looked amazing. Probably his
Right.
best game he played all year.
Right. Starting to be a lot more like we thought he would play. And Arch Manning, he had a lot of hype coming into this. So very unfortunate. I mean, they already have 2 losses. And this loss was definitely their worst because losing to Ohio State isn't that bad. But if you watch the game against Ohio State, they were very reserved with their freshman QB. They didn't want to throw him out of the game. They didn't want him to basically be the reason they lost. So they're very reserved. They didn't let him do much. But now if they rematch, if Texas and Ohio State rematch on a neutral site, Texas gets blown out right now. I don't know how you don't say that because even in that game, it was 14-zip for the longest time, and it felt like Texas was so far away because Ohio State was so reserved. With how Ohio State's been playing, I don't think Texas gets remotely close in a rematch, Jack.
No, I don't think so. And they weren't really close against Florida in this game. They were up for like most of all of
Right.
it. But
Right.
yeah, I don't see that rematch as close at all. I really think like Sand has just really just looked like a 5-star athlete. like he didn't really in week one, which I think they were just, like we said, just trying him out, just not being too gutsy with turnovers or anything like that, just to win the game on your defensive side of the ball. But coming into this week, I would have thought Texas's defense would look like how they've looked all year. Just their defense has looked great all year, but in this game, it really didn't. And giving up this many points and just that many yards, it just because I don't think this is all on Arch. I really don't. I think the offensive line really just was not great for Arch Manning. Just did not have time to throw, but he did overthrow some balls for sure. That could have been easy touchdowns or easy first downs. But yeah, Florida's defense looked so much better than Texas defense, and we knew that coming into it because they've kept every team they've played down to a minimum, even like teams like LSU and Miami. And we knew their run defense was great. Yeah, I don't think this is an all on Arch, but again, Arch wasn't great in this game.
Right. And it's certainly not as good as all of the expectations were for him coming into the year. And he's definitely underperformed. And not just like teams against Ohio State or at Florida. It's not just that. He wasn't great against Utah. He was okay against San Jose State, but he did have an interception. And I know they played great against Sam Houston, but that's not a great win where it's like they were not prepared for that Ohio State game. They were not prepared for this Florida game. And depending on if John Mateer plays or not, I don't think they're prepared for next week's game. Now, they do get to host. That's a big thing. They've been on the road at Florida. They've been on the road at Ohio State. At least they get to host Oklahoma, where if they win that one, then they're on the road at Kentucky. You think they can grab a couple there, but then on the road at Mississippi State, going to be very tricky for the Longhorns that desperately need a comeback because they've lost against the two best teams that they played. They
Yeah.
still don't have a win against Power 4 teams. Same
Hmm.
thing with Penn State. Like, crazy. I don't know
Right.
how
Right.
you were able to rationalize them being in the top 10 before they lost to Florida. But now that they have, like, and the AP was right in doing this, now they're completely gone. It's like, well, you just thought they were top 10. Now you're just basically saying, yeah, you were just really wrong, which is correct. But they didn't stand to their guns there, which why would you? Because Texas is not what they were supposed to be, and they shouldn't be in the top 25 because they have no good wins, and they haven't been too
Right.
competitive in their losses. And I mean, even their losses, you can look at that Ohio State game. They didn't play great other than the defense side of the ball. They didn't play great in this one a lot. And Texas really just isn't great this year, Jack. And definitely a shell of themselves from the last 2 years where they were in the semifinals, Jack.
Right. Absolutely a step below what they were the past few years. And another thing I want to say is about Florida's run defense is just holding them to 52 yards rushing and Arch Manning being their leading rusher. That can't happen against teams like Oklahoma. I mean, it just can't. I
Right.
mean, they got to get the run game going better than what they have. I know Florida's a great run defense, but like that's a big red flag coming into this Oklahoma game. So that's another thing I want to say. But yeah, I mean, this was one of the most hyped teams coming into the season. They really haven't lived up to that at all. And people better start sending their apologies to Quinn Ewers because he has definitely looked like the better Texas quarterback in recent memory.